Welcome to Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock Drogheda. Back in the 1960s, there was a zoo in Omaha, Nebraska in the United States that had an enclosure full of orangutans, and they were having a problem with them. In 1968, the zookeepers would arrive for work and find that the orangutans had escaped from their cage. And so they would round them all up and, postpone opening the zoo until they'd rounded them all up, put them back into their enclosure again, locked the gates and everything else. And then they'd come back the next day and the same thing would have happened again. And this happened on a number of occasions. And it was getting to the point where the head zookeeper was going to fire some of the other staff for their negligence in allowing this to happen. So eventually somebody decided to stay in all night long and observe what was going on. And they saw something quite remarkable. They saw that one of the orangutans would, during the night, would go down to the bottom of the enclosure where there was a gate and was able to pick the lock. He was actually using a bit of wire in order to get in behind the lock and lift up a latch and enable the other orangutans to escape. Really clever thing for an animal like an orangutan to do. So the next day they went into the enclosure and decided to search for this bit of wire to remove it, and they couldn't find it. Well, in the end, they did discover it. And there was a particular orangutan that was doing this, and his name was, the people called him Fu Manchu. And this orangutan was actually, during the day, he would hide the bit of wire in his mouth. It's like he knew that they would take it off him if they found it. So all day long, he'd keep this bit of wire between his bottom teeth and his lip hidden inside his mouth. And then at night, he was taking this wire and opening the door so that the orangutans could escape. When I heard about this, I thought, there's this universal longing for freedom that all of us have, that even animals have. We want to escape from the situation in which we are now. The problem, of course, for those orangutans was escaping out of their enclosure was not giving them freedom. They were still in the zoo. And even if they could get outside the grounds of the zoo, they weren't back in the jungles of Borneo. They were in the city of Omaha, Nebraska. And the best thing that they could hope for would be to be captured humanely and returned to their enclosure, because otherwise they would end up getting killed in an accident or shot because they were a danger to somebody. So they were longing for freedom, but they thought freedom was just getting out of their enclosure, but they weren't free at all when they got out of their enclosure. And very often that's how we as human beings think about freedom. We think that we need to be free from our circumstances. We think that we need to be free from a job, from our economic situation, and so on. And we have all these ideas of freedom that we're craving for and striving for. And sometimes it means casting us off restraint. Sometimes it means involving ourselves in behaviors that are destructive. Sometimes it means leaving behind responsibilities and breaking up families and making ourselves and everybody else miserable, because we're looking for freedom, but the things we do to find freedom might take us out of a situation, but we're still not free. And the reason for that is that the true freedom that we need as human beings, I don't know about orangutans, but as human beings, the true freedom that we need is the freedom that comes from within. It's the freedom from being controlled by sin. And that's why Jesus said, "You shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free." Because true freedom does not come in changing our circumstances. True freedom does not come in winning the lottery. True freedom does not come in engaging in behavior and casting off moral restraints. True freedom comes from having Jesus setting us free from the power of sin and death. And we, as the people of God, we need to walk in this freedom, and we need to share this freedom with others, because there is a universal desire in the human heart to know freedom. And we need to be sharing with people that they will only truly find that freedom in Jesus Christ. May God bless you today. Join us again tomorrow for another Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock Drogheda.